Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Stephen Harvey. It is great to have you in on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Friday?
Happy Friday. I'm happy. It's Friday.
Yeah, as always, we're happy to have you in today as well here on the Harvey Hour. We got a great show planned today. We got some predictions right. And you know what? That's what we're going to start off with. The breaking news. It broke about an hour and a half ago. Jalen Brunson did indeed take the lesser contract. He is signing a 4-year, $156.5 million contract extension with the New York Knicks. Brunson foregoes the potential $113 million extra he could have secured by waiting for a 5-year, $270 million deal in free agency next year. You thought he would wait until the next offseason to sign that massive contract. Instead, you put me on the spot on Tuesday's show and told me if I were to choose between him waiting or signing it on Friday, what would I rather do? I said I think he'd sign it because he's a team player. You thought the other way. You thought he'd go and get the bag. So I would like to know, what is your reaction to Brunson saying, you know what? Let's go with this contract instead.
I'm a little surprised. It doesn't happen very often. It's only happened a couple of other times in the NBA. Tom Brady used to do it with the Patriots so that they could be under the salary cap and retain good players. And I think Brunson's taken a page out of Brady's playbook strategy on that and accepting a little less money. But if you look at the deal, and I guess I should have looked at it a little closer before I said that I didn't think he'd take it, he has that 4th-year player option. Right, that's a big chip for him, and so he can actually sign. It sets him up for a $323 million deal in 2028, or a $418 million deal in 29. Now he's going to be a lot older then, so he may be well past his prime by then. But this only costs him $37 million over the next 3 years, and he's risking $113 million in total. To get to that 4th-year player option and sign that $323 million deal, which will recoup all of the $113 million that he's risking right now. And he's really out of pocket, only sacrificing $37 million. So when you look at it that way, it doesn't look like such a bad deal. It gives him, it lets him realize his goal of maximizing his prime years with a deep roster. I mean, you look at their roster, it looks pretty good right now, except I think they're a little soft at center. They avoided the second apron with him taking the smaller deal, which means that trades and signing players and signing draft picks is a lot easier and much harder for teams that are in over the second apron. He was all top 5. He was a top 5 in the MVP voting this past year, an All-NBA, 28.7 points per game, 11 40-point games. He had 40 points and 5 assists in 4 straight playoff games this year. The Knicks have already done a lot in the offseason here. They re-signed Anunoby, 5 years, $212.5 million, and they signed Mikal Bridges, bringing him over to add a 4th player from the Villanova championship team that Brunson played on. He has $48 million left to go on his contract. I think Brunson, as you mentioned, he's a team player. He's also views the Knicks as family. Leon Rose was his agent before he became the Knicks president. His dad is an assistant coach. He likes Tom Thibodeau. So I thought he would wait and take the bigger deal next year. But this way, if he gets hurt, then he knows he's got $156 million that he'll be paid, and he knows that he has that 4th-year player option. He will play this next year on his old contract, though, which is like $24 million, I think.
Not chump change whatsoever.
No, not chump change. I note that LeBron also accepted a lesser deal.
Well, it was by like $2 million.
$2.6 million. Wow, he really sacrificed a lot for the Lakers to avoid the second apron. Thank you, LeBron. Well, so that's how I feel about it.
That's Pelinka with bad contracts.
I think really diving deep into the deal, you can understand why he did it. It has some real pluses for him, but he needs to stay healthy. He needs to stay healthy and play at a high level for the next 3 years. He has a good incentive to do that because that 4th year, he gets that option and he can get that much bigger deal.
Well, I thought that Jalen Brunson, and I even listened to what I said on Tuesday when I talked about Jalen Brunson's commitment, and he's a team player. This is the definition of playing for the team. Now, the NBA, there aren't many team-friendly deals to go around because everybody wants to get their own, which more power to you. Like I said on Tuesday's show, I said, is Jalen Brunson completely worth the $269 million, $270 million that he would have gotten probably next offseason if the Knicks were to extend him? Absolutely. That's what I said on Tuesday. I still believe it. But this move shows that Jalen Brunson actually cares not only about making a decent amount of money, but also about winning. Because this move of taking $113 million less allows them to potentially sign another top-tier player, most likely a big man, whether it's power forward or center. It allows them to get another big-time player and increase their chances of winning. So it's not Mitch Robinson, and then your backup is a rookie. Now, their draft picks may actually end up being pretty nice. However, I wouldn't I wouldn't put all my cards to the table on a rookie excelling. Now, the NFL always does this. The big-time players who are smart and care about winning Super Bowls, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, they take less because they realize that getting the most amount of money, as much as you possibly can get, generally does not bode well for winning Super Bowls. Now, Mahomes is the outlier. He could be one of the highest paid guys and still win a Super Bowl because he's that incredibly talented. Jalen Brunson's taking a unique approach in the NBA because it's really unheard of for top-tier superstars to get anything less than the max when it's available. And Jalen Brunson had that opportunity. If he would have waited this offseason and signed it next season, he would have gotten his $270 over 5 years and would have been happy. When he came to the Knicks, since coming to the Knicks, because on the Mavericks, he was the number 2 option, and obviously, he went 9.3 points, 8.2 points, and then finally 12 and 16 points a game during his 4 years with the Dallas Mavericks. And then all of a sudden, I think the rumor was they were $1 million away, the Mavericks were, and they wouldn't give Brunson that $1 million. Well, that was a massive mistake. Because since joining the Knicks, Jalen Brunson's averaged 26.5 points a game, 51% from 2, and 40% from 3. Boy, wouldn't Luka Doncic love to have another score when Kyrie Irving goes up against the Celtics and completely is a shadow of himself? Wouldn't he like another score? Now, he got Klay Thompson, but the last time we saw Klay Thompson, he went 0 for 10 in an elimination game. Don't exactly believe that that's your true answer, and also his defensive ability completely fell apart after his injuries. But this opens an entire door to expanding the Knicks, making the Knicks a now prominent name, making them serious, legitimate title contenders because you have that much more money to spend. You have that much more wiggle room in order not to be taxed so much and have so many penalties going your way. The thing that I also want to preface is this opens up the door for an extension of Julius Randle if he wants one, Mikal Bridges if he wants one, because next year, Julius Randle has a player option for $30.1 million. I guarantee you he's not going to accept it. He's not going to whatsoever. And now Mikal Bridges actually is signed for 2025-26, but is a free agent in 26 and 27, as is Mitchell Robinson, who's going to make about $13 million, not this upcoming season, but the season after. So this allows you to keep signing big men. Now, reportedly, the Knicks are interested in a couple people. The first one would be Jalen Duren from the Detroit Pistons. Also, Walker Kessler from the Utah Jazz. And just because the name's out there and there's a chance that they don't get an extension done, Şengün of the Rockets, he's also available. I think the best option out of all three of these guys is probably Duren out of the Pistons, because he is he's a 13 points, 11 rebound guy. You mix him up with Mitch Robinson off the bench. Whoever decides to start, I'm not sure who you would want to start. By the way, all these guys, including Kessler, gives you better points than Mitchell Robinson. So it depends on what lineup you want to go with. Do you want to go mainly offense? Do you want to go defense? It really depends. But the Knicks now have the ability to expand their team even more. They're already one of the top title odds makers already.
I'm not so sure.
They are. They're a top 5 team right now.
Top 5 maybe, but I think they need the big guy. I think they really need a big man. I think losing if they've been able to do all this and have Isaiah Hartenstein back, I'd say they were a very top contender. They would be more of a top contender than I view them right now. They need to go out and get that guy from the Pistons. Maybe. I mean, that guy he's a double-digit scorer and a double-digit rebounder. That's what they got to have. They got to have somebody who can score a little bit, because the other teams, the other elite teams, have all got they've got a big man who is elite. They look at the Philadelphia 76ers. They've got Embiid. You look at the Celtics. They've got Porzingis. Right? You look at the Bucks. They have Giannis. You look at even the Lakers. They have
Anthony Davis.
Anthony Davis. So, there's some elite big men out there.
Jokic.
Jokic, the biggest name of the bigs. And I think that's the kind of guy the Knicks have got to get, somebody that's credible in the 5 slot and the 5 position. And right now, I don't think they've got it.
Well, no, I'm not saying Mitch Robinson's anywhere close there. He doesn't put up the offensive production, yet complains about his offensive production, and he's not an offensive guy. So how can you complain about your offensive touches where you're not an offensive guy? I'm not entirely sure. Is he a good offensive rebounder? Absolutely. Does he play good defense and really is one of the only ones who can go true one-on-one against Embiid? Yeah. But I think sometimes he's a bit slow vertically. So if you're slow vertically, people are going to just blow by you, move around you, and that's something that the Knicks need. They need a Hartenstein, which currently they don't have. So if you can get a big man, which I think they should only be focusing on, they got a bunch of guards in the draft. They got a couple guys who are 6'9", 7 feet tall. If you can focus on the big man in free agency or through a trade or anything like that, sign him to a big extension, massive deal, keep this core together. Yeah, they're top 5 right now. Currently, they're 5th in the title odds. I think, and they're only plus 100 away from the 76ers. If you get another big man, add to your bench, or replace Mitch as the starter, why can't you move up to at least above
76ers, maybe.
Above the 76ers, and hell, I don't know why that this website has plus 850 above plus 800. Not entirely sure, but that would be the Nuggets in number 3.
They're going to be hard to pass, I think.
I don't think so. I think the
they
Nuggets
have the
are going to be
Celtics
very
ranked
disappointing.
first. The Celtics ranked first.
It's Celtics, Thunder, Nuggets, Sixers, Knicks.
Thunder.
Yes. Thunder made some massive moves. Got Hartenstein, got Alex Caruso. They're going to be a very, very good team, especially in a dominating West.
I'd still put the Nuggets ahead of them.
Nah, not for me. Lost too many pieces. But this just shows some players, some very smart players, care more about the team and their success over a big paycheck. Because, as you pointed out, if he waits till 2028, it's a little over $320 million. If he waits until 2029, $413 million. So, and Paul George just got a big extension too, and he's, 34 years old?
Yeah.
Jalen Brunson will be
27. He's 27 right now.
Right. So if Jalen Brunson just walks that tightrope again.
5 years from now, it'd be
32 years old.
32. He should still be in line for a decent payday, yeah.
And think about it. We saw him be a number 2 and be like, okay, this guy's a good number 2. He comes on to the Knicks, is like, whoa, this is who the Mavericks gave up? And then,
he likes the limelight. He likes Madison Square Garden. He plays
wouldn't?
well.
The mecca of basketball.
Yeah. Sometimes I think he may dribble a little bit too much, but
sometimes he has to.
Yeah.
Sometimes he has to. But look, this just proves that, and I said this on Tuesday, the Knicks did themselves 2 favors. They did themselves a favor by getting a 20-point score in Mikal Bridges and also a very good defender. And they allowed Jalen Brunson to be happy and I think allowed this opportunity to actually come into fruition because you got another one of his buddies, one of his best friends.
They won a national championship.
Exactly. So they did themselves 2 services there by giving Jalen Brunson one of his best friends, as well as getting themselves a very good wing defender and a 20-point-a-night scorer, which in turn takes a bunch of the weight off Brunson, who, by the way, played his 3rd straight 70-game season. So durability, I think, is pretty fine right now. He only, fractured his hand, broke his hand in Game 7 of round 2 against the Pacers.
Plenty of time to heal.
Exactly. But think about it. We go this entire time, and there's one massive injury at a really unfortunate time when the entire Knicks roster was just depleted entirely. Yeah. So if you add a Mikal Bridges, allow him to take the load off of Brunson, why can't his production increase? Because there's less weight on him. People aren't double teaming him literally from the inbounds pass. Gabe Vincent tried to do that a couple years ago and really.
If they can stay healthy, they have decent depth too.
Yeah.
Right? They'll have DiVincenzo probably coming off the bench.
DiVincenzo, Hart's coming off the bench. Deuce McBride's coming off the bench too. They were up to Deuce McBride being their primary scorer off the bench. That can't happen, especially in the playoffs. Yes, he had a couple nice games, but you cannot let Deuce McBride be your primary scorer off the bench.
Got to keep Anunoby healthy.
That's another big thing. Keep Anunoby happy, which historically throughout his career, he's missed several games, dozens of games over his career per season. So if they can keep him healthy, which then again could happen with Bridges getting more attention, OG can focus more on defense than scoring. I mean, I'm saying the Knicks can compete for a title this season, regardless of who they have as a center.
You think they'll go get a center before this season? Yeah, they're going to have to.
I think they should. There's a question of how much do they want to pursue it. Now that they have Brunson extended, a lot of the contracts don't fall on top of each other. They don't need to deal with Bridges, Randall, and Brunson all within a year or two of each other. It allows you, okay, we have this situation handled. Let's focus on the next one instead of having to deal with three in a very, very short amount of time. So the Knicks making massive moves, and I think they're the right moves.
And you called it correct.
I did call it correct. Let's get into our next topic here. So, Aaron Rodgers. Let's talk about him for a second. When he came to, even before he came to the New York Jets, it seemed like he was trying to get all of his buddies, Mercedes Lewis, Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, even Davante Adams. Well, now Aaron Rodgers is even more vocal about Davante Adams, potentially trying to get him to join the New York Jets. Now, Davante Adams on Up and Adams talked about this and was asked whether or not Aaron Rodgers is in his ear, and he responded. We're going to show both videos. And then recently, Aaron Rodgers at a golf course also was asked about Davante Adams. Actually, he wasn't even asked about Davante Adams. He was just basically going candid information, saying, yeah, he wants to play with Davante Adams again. Take a listen to both clips.
You two are boys, a lot of love for each other. You went to the Derby together. We see the pictures on the Instagram. Are you telling me he's not getting in your ear and saying, hey, I want to play with you again?
Oh, he's in that ear, that's for sure. he's in the ear, but it's not as easy as it. Obviously we can get together and talk about the old times and potential of doing this and that, but like I said, I'm a Raider, and he knows that. So,
what's up? Do you think Luke Getsy's going to utilize Davante Adams good in the new Raiders offense?
I love Luke Getsy. He's a fantastic coach.
Awesome.
I love Davante. I can't wait to play with him again.
So do you think that there is any chance Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams team up once again?
It's interesting. The way he said that, he says, I love Davante. I can't wait to play with him. Was he talking about golf?
Could be.
Maybe he was talking about golf. At least right then he might have been. But he has, according to Adams, been in his ear and wanting him to come play together again. The Jets actually made a move to try to trade for him in November. The Raiders rejected it. I'm not sure how much what his contract looks like, Davante Adams. But let's say the Jets get through this season, they make the playoffs, maybe don't go so far, but they do get there. They find that the wide receiver core really wasn't what they thought it was going to be. They'll be definitely out there trying to get him. If Rodgers plays well. If Rodgers plays well and he knows he's coming back, and it looks like Rodgers wants to play more than 2 years, and if he can and he's doing well, they're going to try hard to get Adams. I'm very sure of it.
Well, his base salary for this season, Davante Adams, is making about $35.6 million. The massive problem with that is the Jets don't have the room to even trade for him. They got $6 million in cap space. They can't even afford Davante Adams even if they tried to. The big thing is they also have to deal with Hassan Reddick, who wants a contract extension. Now, he's holding out. Lord knows how long, but he's holding out right now. So they currently don't have the pieces to move anybody. Yes, it would look good to have Mike Williams, Garrett Wilson, Davante Adams as your trio of wide receivers. It's just unlikely. The Raiders already said that they're not going to trade Davante Adams whatsoever, and I think that they shouldn't. Nor do I think that they should basically be giving up pennies for a dollar, because Davante Adams is still a very good receiver. He played with Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell with a hint of Brian Hoyer. Tell me how many receivers could excel to a level of being considered the best receiver in the NFL with a quarterback who was the best in a system that fit him perfectly with Kyle Shanahan, where you just dink and dunk and move the system around. Jimmy Garoppolo can't deal with Josh McDaniels' broken system. He just couldn't. Brian Hoyer, career backup, not very good anyway. It is what it is. And then Aiden O'Connell was a rookie, played okay, about a 500 record. Who can excel with those quarterbacks? Not many. Hell, Davante Adams was actually one of the reasons why Jimmy G got benched. He was so frustrated. We heard this now on the Netflix show Receiver. He was so frustrated that he was either going to basically force his way out of Las Vegas or be in the process of benching his starting quarterback. He went with the latter option of benching Jimmy Garoppolo in order to stay with the Raiders. Now, let's actually have a debate now. If this were to happen, what would the Raiders be willing to take from the Jets to move Davante Adams? Because I had a conversation with a couple of my friends, one of them who's a Jets fan, and I felt like the offer that I was told is very low, and my offer that I presented was way too high, and maybe it is too high. But I'll expand on after this. But I want to know, what do you think the Raiders would accept if they decided to move Davante Adams?
I would say either Hall, the running back.
Breece Hall?
Breece Hall. And probably a draft pick.
What round?
Maybe a second.
Breece Hall in a second.
Breece Hall in a second. Or Sauce Gardner and maybe a second.
So that's funny how you bring that up. So I thought originally, because I still think Davante Adams is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. I'll bring up the numbers right now just to prove it to everybody. He had 103 catches and 1,100 yards and 8 touchdowns. But then his quarterback was Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, and Aiden O'Connell. 3 quarterbacks in one season. Doesn't exactly, help him out a lot. But when he was with Derek Carr, he had 100 catches, 1,500 yards, and 14 touchdowns. Led the NFL. So if he has a decent quarterback that isn't Jimmy Garoppolo, who was very bad, Hoyer or O'Connell, he could still be a very, very functional wide receiver. It's just the last time we saw him, he was dealing with 3 bad quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. So my original offer, which I'll admit is a little bit, much. I said Sauce Gardner, and I think I said 2 firsts.
2 firsts.
I thought, and rightfully so. Maybe that was pushing a little bit, but I do think that the Raiders would want a player. They would not take him for, I believe, what Clutch Points said on their website of just 2 second-round picks. The Raiders would never accept just 2 second-round picks because I think anybody who realized that, hey, well, first of all, let me preface this. The Raiders are sticking with either Aiden O'Connell or going with Gardner Minshew. So we may be in the same situation where they don't have a quarterback who's capable of allowing Davante Adams to be Davante Adams.
Mm-hmm. Let's not forget that the Davante Adams had a period then last year where he got very frustrated. He wasn't doing well catching the ball. He got McDaniels. Maybe that had a role in McDaniels getting fired. He seemed to be rejuvenated under Antonio Pierce, and so he could wind up in that same situation. Those 2 quarterbacks are not elite by any stretch.
That's for sure.
So is he going to catch 103 or 108 balls or 110 balls and have 7, 8, 9, 10 touchdowns with those guys throwing in the ball? I doubt it. I'm not so sure that that's going to happen. It certainly wouldn't happen with Aiden O'Connell. I mean, that's one game last year. He didn't even throw a pass, right?
It was against the Chiefs, I believe.
Against the Chiefs, what did he throw? Maybe 1? He didn't even throw one.
No. He threw one. I think it was like 6 passes.
6 passes. I mean, how does Davante Adams like that standing out there expecting to be a highlight reel when they're not even throwing the ball at all?
Right.
Not just not throwing it to him, not throwing it at all.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things start happening again. He could be frustrated, stop making noise, being a disruption on the sideline.
Oh, no. We were completely wrong. I'm sorry. He had less than 10 completions. He attempted 21 passes. But I think most of those came in the second half. I don't think he threw it much in the first half at all.
Okay, well, he didn't throw it much, and he didn't complete. He completed 6?
9 out of 21.
9 out of 21. Wow,
for 62 yards.
That's not pro football, that's for sure.
No.
Particularly when you have a player like Adams out there. So he could wind up frustrated again, make a noise, be a disruption in the locker room. Raiders may want to unload him. Jets would be the prime team if they could figure it out according to their salary cap.
Well, because right now their current wide receiver group is Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Xavier Gibson, Malachi Corley, and Alan Lazard. Those are the top 5, give or take. That's not
elite.
That's not elite, but it's not bad though.
Garrett Wilson is good.
Xavier Gibson's a punt returner. He's your wide receiver 3. If you could have Devontae Adams, and I think Devontae Adams would probably be your 1, Garrett Wilson your 2, although I don't think it really matters. Both would be playing out wide if you were to do that type of a scheme. Mike Williams would be your 3.
Mike Williams has a hard time staying healthy.
Correct, and that's why I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to look at another receiver, whether it's Devontae Adams or someone else. Now, if the Jets go out to a 7-0 record, let's just say 7-8-0, would the Raiders be willing to get off him? And if the Raiders suck, because they probably will end up not being that great, because I think the quarterback is the most, I think everybody agrees, but the quarterback is the most important position in football. And if you have Aiden O'Connell, who's not that great, and Gardner Minshew, who is okay, and I think in some games he looks great, but for the most part, there's a reason why he's a backup quarterback. There's a reason why he's on his 3rd or 4th team by now. So if those 2 quarterbacks are the guys that you're really in a quarterback competition with, and one of them eventually is going to be the starter, yeah, that's not going to be great for you. So they might be horrible. Jets might be great. They still might be interesting because it's Aaron Rodgers. He's one of the best throwers the NFL has ever seen. So if you add his buddy, and I think, really, let's just throw this out there. Let's say it gets done, right? Does that not make the Jets a top 3 Super Bowl team?
Could.
I think it would. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy.
Depends on what they have to give up. If they had to give up 2 big pieces on defense to get it done, then that could hurt them. But if they could get it done with the kind of trade I discussed,
Brees Hall in a second or Sauce in a second?
Yeah. Then I think that would be good.
I don't think the Jets would do that. Those are 2 extremely young pieces. Could they do... No.
Remember, Aaron Rodgers has a big influence on that franchise. And maybe not so much right now because he dissed them in the OTAs. They weren't happy about that. In fact, they had Hackett not calling the plays in the 2-minute drill. They gave it to another guy. And this to send a message to, I think they were sending a message to Aaron Rodgers about that. They weren't too happy.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But, yeah, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, they were probably, for a decent amount of time, the best quarterback-wide receiver duo in the NFL. Rodgers decided, you know what, let me spend a bunch of money. Devontae Adams left. Rodgers did not perform very well with the young core receivers. And now we've only seen him for 4 plays, so I don't even know how to assess how he will be with the Jets, how he has been with the Jets, because we've seen him for 75 seconds. So we'll see this season how he looks with Garrett Wilson. He already has a brand new wide receiver in Mike Williams. Brees Hall's back healthy again. So we'll see how he looks coming into the 2024-2025 season. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, Brandon Aiyuk. We have Ian Rapoport giving us an update on Brandon Aiyuk, as well as I'm back giving my top 10 quarterbacks before the start of training camp. All that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of tonight's show. So, during Thursday's edition of NFL Network's The Insiders, NFL's Ian Rapoport suggested that San Francisco 49ers fans shouldn't be stunned if star wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk is nowhere to be seen when veteran San Francisco players report to training camp on July 23rd. And this is actually what he had to say. He does want a contract extension. I would be surprised, we'll see, but I would be a little surprised now if he sets foot on the field without an extension. So we certainly have not heard the last of this one. I want to know, do you think the 49ers should be worried if Brandon Aiyuk decides to hold out a training camp and potentially hold out the start of preseason, and depending on how bad it looks, maybe even hold out the start of the NFL season?
I don't think they'll be overly worried. They have a rookie that they drafted that seems to look promising. His name is Ricky Pearsall. And also there's another guy, Jacob Cowing. So if the 49ers, or if Aiyuk sits out, $40,000 fine every day, it gives the 49ers the opportunity to bring Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing up to speed. So that may not be such a bad thing. Let's not forget who the 49ers have on their team. George Kittle. They have Deebo Samuels, right? They have Christian McCaffrey, who can catch the ball very well. And then they have these rookies. So I don't think they're hurting that badly. I don't see that this plays well for Aiyuk to sit out. He doesn't really have much leverage. He's going to risk the $40K fine per day, which he's on a rookie contract, so it can get waived. Nick Bosa pulled this move last year, and he didn't get it signed until week 1. So, Aiyuk doesn't have any leverage. He's probably going to have to sit and miss most of the training camp. He'll be rusty when he does come out on the field. He won't be really ready to play. Why wouldn't he just come out and go to the training camp, get himself ready to play, start the season all ready to go, have a really nice season, then he's a free agent. So to me, I think that'd be the better move for him. Forget about this. Maybe the 49ers are not going to try to re-sign you, and you give yourself some leverage if you have a nice season with them, and then you're a free agent, then there'll be a lot of suitors for your talents.
I said this before, about a week ago, I want to say, when we first heard that Aiyuk was probably going to end up, potentially missing training camp and all this, and a holdout was in the midst if he did not get an extension relatively soon, and it looks like that's still on the table. But this is a bad idea. Like you just mentioned, Aiyuk doesn't have much leverage whatsoever. Because if this was a team like the Carolina Panthers, New England Patriots, they need a wide receiver. If they had Aiyuk and he was their main receiver, absolutely, they would already be giving in about 2 months ago. But the 49ers are the best receiver core in the NFL. They don't need Aiyuk. Now, on Aiyuk's part, the part that's actually going against the 49ers is that Brock Purdy and Aiyuk developed a great connection during this season. He was incredible. The passer rating is like 120, and the next highest receiver is Deebo, I think at 107. Passer rating when thrown to. So yes, Aiyuk had a tremendous connection with Purdy. He was the second or first best deep ball graded receiver this past season. So him and Brock Purdy definitely connected. That's the part where the 49ers are like, ugh. Well, Brock Purdy, okay. A lot of check downs to Deebo Samuel. He had the highest yards per reception in the NFL. But when it comes down to it, do the 49ers need Aiyuk? Are they desperate to get the receiver that, or are they desperate to give him a contract that maybe he's not worth? Because right now he's asked for $30+ million. He's asking for the Justin Jefferson deal. He's asking for the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal. That's not really what he's worth. I'd give him I would give him $30 million at the very max. But to say that you're worth $35 a year, no, you're not. Are you worth $32? Maybe. But
I don't know. I don't think he's worth that
If they were desperate, this would have been a $33.5 million
He's not the number one
deal.
receiver. He's not the number one there. Deebo Samuels is the number one receiver.
I think if we talk about production-wise, Brandon Aiyuk became the number one receiver just because, the deep ball connection, passer rating when thrown to, yes, Deebo listed on a depth chart is considered the wide receiver.
How many catches did you say he had?
I didn't say yet. I'll look it up because I don't have it in front of me currently. Brandon Aiyuk last season had 75 catches.
That's not elite number one receiving.
About 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns. 17.9 yards a catch.
1,300 yards is great. 7 touchdowns is good.
Right, but on 75 catches.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel had 60 catches, 892 yards, and 7 touchdowns. So
I still think Deebo, to me, is the more athletic of the two.
I'm not yet.
The more
100%.
dynamic of the two.
I would agree.
Yeah. So you can put him at running back if you want.
And
You
he,
can put
he has
Deebo
run
in
out of the backfield.
yeah.
Absolutely. But this was hands down one of Deebo's worst seasons. One of. Obviously, he's played 5 seasons in the NFL. If we're talking about impact on the game, Aiyuk had a much bigger impact. 100%. Aiyuk was the better deep ball catcher, better deep route runner. We saw him against the Lions. He had that bobble catch. So, yes, maybe not on ESPN's depth chart.
That bobble catch was luck.
It could be luck. But on ESPN's depth chart, he's number 2. But if we're talking about connection, right, Julian Edelman for Tom Brady. Was he a top receiver in the NFL? No, he was not. Yet he was the top receiver, and Brady trusted him more than anyone else besides probably Gronkowski.
He got space. He managed to find space.
And that's exactly what Aiyuk did with the 49ers. So, yes, while Purdy has that, and while the 49ers have to look at that, if Aiyuk does sit out, they'd be losing their number 1 deep target. They would be losing their number 1 connection, or Brock Purdy would be losing his number 1 connection. I think it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things because you may have drafted his replacement, Ricky Pearsall, who's already made a couple spectacular catches in college, who can bring you that same type of deep route running, can bring you that same type of production, obviously under the right growth, under the right development, but they may have just drafted your replacement. Now, what I think, I agree with Jerry Rice.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Aiyuk should just play.
Yeah, just play and see what happens.
Because, honestly, you think about it, you bring up the same production, you increase from last year, screw the $30 million. You've been making $35 million a year if you bring the same level of performance.
If he plays, he'll start the season, as I said, at a high level. Maybe that makes the 49ers feel differently about him. It could be, too.
That would be the smart thing. If that is the case, where he comes out, drops another, let's say he has another 75 catches, 1,400 yards, and 7 touchdowns again, the 49ers would gladly sign that paycheck. Right, $35 million, and then just be like, here, yeah, you earned it. But because they're so deep at receiver and just got another receiver who looks pretty promising, your leverage just became even less if you had any to begin with. So it's unfortunate. All right, let's talk about this. So I always do my top 10 quarterbacks, and it's another rendition of this. It's been a while since I did a top 10 list. I think it was week 12 or 13 the last time I did my top 10 quarterbacks. So let's actually jump in to my top 10 quarterbacks. I always do this. I do it a number of times. This is I call it the preseason top 10 NFL quarterbacks, but you could also say top 10 quarterbacks entering training camp. So let's begin with
number 10.
I got Dak Prescott. He had the best season of his career. He was number 1 in passing touchdowns, number 2 highest graded quarterback according to Pro Football Focus, number 3 in passing yards, and tied for second in completion percentage among the qualified quarterbacks. However, I'm taking everything into account. I'm not worried about regular season versus playoffs. I'm not saying only playoffs. The last time we saw him, he got his butt kicked by Jordan Love in a defense that was ranked about average. You can't let that happen. You can't go third and out consistently against the youngest team in the NFL. You can't throw 2 untimely interceptions, one of which went the other way, and you score with 2 seconds left in the first half, again, against the youngest team in the NFL. You can't let that happen. You have a 2-5 postseason record, and one of those wins was against basically senior citizen Tom Brady, who if he saw basically if a 300-pound guy was less than 15 feet away from him, would be throwing it either out of bounds or tucking it and taking the sack. That really was his last postseason win, if I'm not mistaken, was against an elderly Tom Brady who really was a complete shell of himself. So, Dak Prescott, correct. MVP candidate, 100%. Yes, did have the best season of his career. But when it mattered most, Dak Prescott became the Dak Prescott everybody knows. A big fat fraud. All right, let's go with the next one.
Number 9.
I got Jalen Hurts. He was tied for first in rushing touchdowns among non-running backs and tied for second actually overall in rushing touchdowns. He has now rushed for 38 touchdowns in 3 seasons as a full-time starter. Only 3 other quarterbacks in the modern era have more rushing touchdowns in their entire careers. He's done it in 3 seasons. So, absolutely a complete scoring machine, banged up last year, which I think hindered his production this season with a brand new running back, healthy offense. Now, you did lose Jason Kelce, but you're back healthy. Everybody's healthy, which is great. Can he bring that same type of explosiveness from 2022 when he made it to the Super Bowl, when he was an MVP candidate? I think that is definitely in the cards 100%. I also think they take over the NFC East this season. The next one.
Number 8.
I got Jordan Love. He had an impressive last 10 games of his career, and especially when he ended the regular season. He had 18 touchdowns to 1 interception and had over a 70% completion percentage. Not that bad, but in those last 10 games, he was 7-3, 64.5 completion percentage, 261.6 passing yards a game, 23 touchdowns, 3 picks, 113 passer rating. That is a top 10 quarterback. That's the last time we saw him. Yes, the first 9 games with the youngest team in the NFL, brand new opportunity for Jordan Love, a true opportunity to be a starter with the youngest team in the NFL. Obviously, there's growing pains. Last 10 games showed who he really was, and I think he'll be a great quarterback this season. Also, he was 7th in passing yards, 2nd in passing touchdowns, and like I said, led the youngest team in the NFL to a playoff win over the Cowboys, and honestly, had 2 chances to make it to the NFC Championship game in year 1 as a starter. So absolutely, Jordan Love deserves to be a top 10 quarterback on my list.
Number 7.
I got Jared Goff. He was 4th in passer rating in the fourth quarter or overtime of 1-score games. Among those with obviously 100 passes, at least 100 passes in those circumstances. He was number 9 in passer rating on deep attempts. He was number 8 in third down passer rating. That's a very key number there. And we saw against the Rams in that first playoff game. Those third downs were extremely crucial, absolutely crucial. And I think we talked about this when it happened on the show. By the way, number 6 in overall pass rating as well. But I think if it wasn't for Dan Gamble being himself, making some very, very questionable fourth down calls instead of kicking a field goal, a very high opportunity Jared Goff probably could have made a Super Bowl this past season. It's just the way it turned out to be. Dan Gamble gambled too strongly. And guess what? It bit him. So Jared Goff's up on this list. Consistently great, except, let's be honest. When it's outside, cold weather, Jared Goff, and especially under pressure, Jared Goff shrinks a little bit. But with the number 1 offensive line in the NFL, how many times are you going to be under that much pressure? Probably not that many. So that's why I give Jared Goff the number 7 spot.
Number 6.
I got Joe Burrow. The best ability for me is availability, because if you're available, I could actually see you perform. Now, he wasn't 100% available, meaning 100% healthy in large chunks of the season, the first month or so. Completely banged up. A lot of the sports media was talking about how he shouldn't even be out there because of his preseason injury during practice. And then he ended up only playing 10 games that season after getting that weird ligament injury. I think it was banging it on Jadeveon Clowney's hand or something like that against the Ravens. He was completely out for the rest of that season, but he should be back very, very healthy. But during the time he was available, his best game was against the 49ers' incredible defense, where he was picking apart that defense, and really Brock Purdy had no opportunity to get back in this game because Joe Burrow kept scoring, kept pushing the ball down the field. So absolutely, when he's healthy, he'd be much higher on this list. Probably for me, a top 3 quarterback on this list, and definitely an MVP candidate. And guess what? Here's a massive one. Right now, the Goliath of the NFL is Patrick Mahomes. He is the only quarterback to go toe-to-toe with Mahomes and be extremely successful, has a 3-1 record. So that's why I put Joe Burrow at number 6.
Number 5.
Number 5 for me is C.J. Stroud. I understand, rookie season, but it was an incredible rookie season. He shocked several people as a rookie. He had big-time comeback wins against Tampa Bay. He went 96 yards in about 42 seconds, had a comeback against the Bengals and against the Colts. Guess what? Stroud threw for a league-wide interception percentage low of 1%. 1%. He had 499 pass attempts. 1% of them ended up in interceptions. That's pretty good. Pretty damn good. And he took a 3-13-1 team, turned him into a 10-7 team, made the playoffs, beat the number 1 defense in the NFL, the Cleveland Browns, in the playoffs, and was en route to playing against the Ravens, who obviously were overmatched. Had a very strong defense. Lamar Jackson's an incredible quarterback, won MVP last season, but he also had a conference-best 4.7 air yards per completed pass attempt. So the guy is accurate, smart decision-making. The numbers look great. Last year, he had, I think, over 4,000 yards. I don't have the graphic in front of me. He had over 4,000 yards passing, incredibly efficient. He had a triple-digit passer rating in the fourth quarter overtime in 1-score games, and he had an AFC best 123.4 passer rating on deep passes and led Houston to win the AFC South. So definitely 100% C.J. Stroud has earned this spot.
Number 4.
Number 4 is Brock Purdy for me. MVP candidate up until about Christmas when he played against the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson beat him, and clearly from that point on, Lamar Jackson was the MVP. He has 2 NFC title games in 2 seasons, one of which he obviously won and made the Super Bowl this past season, and had a couple opportunities to win but fell short. He was first in yards per attempt and passer rating, number 3 in passing touchdowns, number 5 in passing yards, and we saw in the playoffs he had some of the most crucial back-breaking, motivation-killing runs in those big-time playoff games, which shows, yes, he has the ability, kind of Mahomesian, to when he needs to run, tuck the ball, and start heading and running. So he has that ability. He has that awareness. He has that football IQ to when he needs to run. He sees an open lane and the game's on the line, the drive's on the line, they need to score. Brock Purdy will do that. So that's why he is my number 4 quarterback.
Number 3.
Obviously, this is the MVP, Lamar Jackson. He won his 2nd MVP award. His 3rd highest graded quarterback by Pro Football Focus. He grew massively as a passer under Todd Monken's system. Had the most passing yards, highest completion percentage of his career so far. And guess what? He was able to perform at a very efficient and effective clip. Let's be honest, without the strongest receiving core. Did he have a bunch of first-round picks? Absolutely. Did he have OBJ, who was 1 year removed from potentially, if he didn't get hurt with his ACL tear, potentially being Super Bowl MVP with the Los Angeles Rams? 100%. Nelson Aguilar. People like to beat up on Nelson Aguilar because he dropped passes. Yeah, early in his career. Nowadays, he was not that bad for the New England Patriots and Mac Jones before they screwed up that entire offensive system. But instead, you know what? Lamar played to his strengths. He grew as a passer. That's what I want to see. He won his 2nd MVP. More power to you. He is my number 3 quarterback.
Number 2.
I got Josh Allen. Yes, turnover problems have been a massive issue. So far in his career, he has had one season below double digit interceptions. He's Brett Favre. That's who he is. He's Brett Favre. He's a modern day Brett Favre. Gunslinger. He's high-risk, high-reward type of quarterback. He was 4th in passing yards, tied for 5th in passing touchdowns. He was number 2 in big-time throws, and he was number 1 in rush grade for non-running backs. He was also tied with Jalen Hurts for rushing touchdowns among non-running backs, and then again tied for 2nd overall in rushing touchdowns. He had a tremendous season. A lot of people thought he could have been the MVP, but Lamar, the amount that he was doing, he was the Ravens last season. Hard to put a guy who was really the soul and really the only major production piece of an offense. You can't exactly put Josh Allen over that type of player. So Josh Allen gets number 2, and the obvious, I don't think anyone's going to argue with this.
Number 1.
I got Patrick Mahomes. Just won his, 3rd Super Bowl now. Going for a 3-peat. Yes, he didn't have the best wide receiver core, but that not best wide receiver core ended up winning that Super Bowl. The ability to recognize that Kadarius Toney, yeah, he can't catch the ball. We're going to bench him essentially the rest of the season. Very smart move. There were a couple, bad moments there, like Kadarius Toney lining up offensive offsides. Not the best look. But he was number 6 in passing yards. He, once again, just like Brock Purdy, except even to a higher extent, had some really back-breaking runs where you thought you had him. 3rd and 12, he runs 40, gains 16 yards. That's what Mahomes could do. One of the best arms in the NFL, although really I still think I would take Josh Allen's pure arm over Mahomes, but he still is a top 3 arm in the NFL. He overcame probably the worst wide receiver core he will ever have. Now entering this season, he's going to have Xavier Worthy, who I'm still saying has a Tyreek Hill mold to him, extremely fast. They're going to go back to the deep bomb throws, 75-yard touchdowns, but I don't think anyone is going to argue with Mahomes being the number 1 quarterback. But I would like to hear what your reaction is on my top 10 quarterback list.
I agree with all 10.
Really? That's a first.
I agree with all 10. I do think it's a little controversial, some of the spots they're in, though.
Okay.
I would say the 2 controversial spots are number 5 and number 8, only because of the sample size of both players. They really, it's last year that you're basing it on. They've only really played one season, and for Love, it's really the second half of last year where he really stepped up and showed that he could really do it. So can they keep doing it? All the other quarterbacks have a higher sample size, so I would swap Jalen Hurts for number 5. I would swap Dak Prescott for number 8. Okay. I would put C.J. Stroud at number 9, and I would put Love at number 10. That would be the only change I'd make. Everything else I tend to agree with. I think, Joe Burrow, he was hurt a lot last year. He didn't play that many. He played 10 games. He started the season hurt. You have to be out there on the field to see how well you can do. So everybody else played the whole season. I think at number 6, maybe that's okay. Maybe Goff might be a little ahead of him, but I think given just based on last year, but based on their careers, I think he got that right. So everything else I agree with.
I'll say this up front. I originally had Tua at number 10. Dak Prescott wasn't on it. Then I thought, well, Dak just had his best season, was a true MVP candidate. Tua, after November, becomes basically an iceberg. He's still winless in basically sweater weather. So I can't put him there if in the biggest moments of the season, Tua can't win games. And especially against teams with a winning record, if you're up against top-tier teams and you can't perform very well, I can't put you. Same thing with Dak Prescott, but Dak at least is good enough to at least sometimes have good games. Tua can't. He's winless. So there you go. That's my top 10 list. We're going to take a quick break again, but coming up, Steelers Insider says Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, the quarterback competition is absolutely over, as well as Steve Kerr is now saying Jonathan Kuminga is available for a trade, but he wasn't about 2 weeks ago with Paul George. We'll talk about that right after this.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Stephen Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Friday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic. So, Steelers insider Ray Fittipaldo went on 93.7 The Fan and discussed how the quarterback competition between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson is essentially over, and this is what the full quote was. You're not going to see Justin Fields maybe with the ones a whole lot in the preseason games unless there's an injury, but I think we'll see that maybe 5-6 times during training camp. And I think on those days where he does get to go with the ones, he's going to have to prove himself and show the coaching staff in the front office that he might be a part of the team's future. So it looks like Russell Wilson, we heard this from the beginning. We kept hearing the phrase, Russell Wilson has a pole position to get the starting job with the Pittsburgh Steelers, although some people thought Justin Fields might be able to overtake Russell Wilson. There's a lot going on with the Steelers, with Justin Fields, with Russell Wilson, but I think the consensus at this point is that Russell Wilson will be at least the week 1 starter moving forward. That's the big question, and so I'm going to ask you, do you expect to see Justin Fields to take the field at any point as the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers this season?
I do. I think that Fittipaldo has it right, that they never really considered Justin Fields to be the starter this year. I think they'd like to see him develop, and they want him to compete. Maybe next year he'd have a better shot at number 1. I think the hype about him being seriously considered this year is coming mostly from his agent, who wants to keep him in the limelight here, keep him in front of many teams, have people not forget that he could be available next year, and that it's going to be helped by the Steelers having the Hard Knocks set up this year. Gives Fields a voice to keep other teams interested. So I think it's more about the hype and the marketing now that it still has some people thinking that Fields may have a shot starting the season. But I agree with the coach here that it's not going to happen, that Russell Wilson is considered the camp. He's coming into camp as the undisputed leader, and he'll have the chance to show what he can do. My thinking is that as we've seen the last couple seasons here for Russell Wilson, he looks like he's over the hill, particularly 2 years ago. And that's when he was coming into a system that he was not familiar with. He'd been with Seattle all his career. He came into the Broncos system, and he was terrible. Some of it had to do with the coach, but he wound up with a great offensive coach who had made every quarterback that he'd ever coached better, and including Jameis Winston. Sean Payton didn't like Russell Wilson. I think almost from day one he didn't like him, and now he was out of there, and now he's in his third system, and so far he's shown in the first year of a new system he's not good. So I'm expecting that he'll start the season. He'll play maybe 3 or 4 games. May lay an egg. I think there's at least a 50% chance of that. And if that happens, then you're going to see Justin Fields, and that will be his opportunity.
So you're saying week 5?
Week 4 or 5, yeah.
So currently how their schedule opens actually is pretty light. At Atlanta, at Denver, versus Chargers, at Indy. So that is very, that right there, the first 4 games, easily go 3-1. I think 3-1's, I think they'll lose to the Chargers, but that's an easy 3-1. My problem is the last 8 or so games are absolutely brutal. Versus Baltimore, at Cleveland, at Cincy, versus Cleveland, at Philly, at Baltimore, versus Kansas City, versus Cincy. That is a brutal last stretch of the NFL season. I don't think you would throw Justin Fields basically into the deep end against those types of teams. So, and I think Russell Wilson will play good enough to make it to at least that stretch, because that home stretch right there, that is a brutal one. That's actually why they're currently ranked as the hardest schedule in the NFL, because within your own division, you have basically 3 other teams that probably will make the playoffs on a consistent basis. So when it comes to me, I've been on this since basically 2022. I think Russell Wilson, this is a trend, and a lot of people are saying that it looks like Russell Wilson's washed, which washed might be a little bit too much. He's definitely a low-end starter at the very best. Is he better than Justin Fields? I think so currently. Can Justin Fields eventually, surpass Russell Wilson? Not for a career, but currently under the right system, absolutely. And I think he does have it with Arthur Smith, who is a sort of run-first scheme. You have Najee Harris, you have Jalen Warren, pretty good running backs, absolutely. Not only that, your wide receiver core ain't half bad whatsoever. Now, I don't think you're going to get any of the top free agents top people like Aiyuk, who supposedly there have been rumors about the Steelers trying to get him. I don't think that's going to happen, but George Pickens ain't bad. Roman Wilson, rookie, I think that'll be an interesting piece to look at. Van Jefferson, as your 2, that's a little bit much. As a 3, as a 4, I think you could be perfectly fine. My problem with Russell Wilson, and even with Justin Fields, yes, they both take tremendous amounts of sacks. But how much of it is on them? How much pressure do they generate based on their own responsibility? Russell Wilson last year led the NFL. Nearly 1/4 of all of his pressures came because of him. Justin Fields is 9th on this list. 17.5% or 17.6% of his pressures were because of him, because they hold on to the ball too long. Russell Wilson's efficiency is him rolling out and sending it deep. That's how he is the most efficient quarterback. Can he do that on the Steelers? I think a lot of people would hope so. I think the Steelers themselves are hoping so. But I'm sticking with my guns here. This will be the first season of Mike Tomlin to not end with a positive winning percentage. I think they'll go below 500 because nowadays you can't even go 500 anymore. I think 8-9 is really probably the best record that these Pittsburgh Steelers can get. Yes, their defense is going to be, on paper, it doesn't look the greatest. It doesn't look like a top 5 defense in the NFL, but can it sometimes play like a top 5 defense if everybody's healthy? Absolutely. But I don't think that will be enough for this team to be like, oh, snap. This looks like a serious playoff contender. So I think we're at the point where it's like, yes, it's you're choosing which is the better of the two okay to bad quarterbacks. Justin Fields went for a conditional 6th, which will be a 6th-round pick. If you're saying he plays, week 4, week 5 on, well, I think that turns into, what was it? Is a 3rd-round pick it turns into? 4th-round pick it turns into? That conditional 6 that the Bears got? So I'm thinking that the Bears are hoping Russell Wilson implodes, because then they get a higher draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say Russell Wilson does play 51% of the snaps. That means Justin Fields' value ended up being a 6th-round pick. And people were talking about, 1st-round pick, absolutely. 2nd-round pick, definitely. I was getting hate for saying a 3rd-round pick. Even for a 6th, essentially. Because I don't see Russell Wilson imploding. He will play it safe. He did that last year with the Broncos. He is the only quarterback for the past 2 seasons to have double-digit percentage of checkdowns. That's what he did last season. Yes, the numbers look good. The numbers look pretty good. But it's because he was playing it super safe. And I think he'll do that.
He had some bad turnovers. He had some bad decisions made.
Uncostly turnovers, 100%.
He had Sean Payton yelling at him. He said he couldn't grasp the offensive play calling in a timely fashion. They had to dumb it down for him. Had a lot of criticism of him coming from Sean Payton. He just didn't like him. So it'll be interesting to see how Russell Wilson plays with Mike Tomlin.
I mean, the reports all say, and I think it's expected, Russell Wilson, nice guy, able to take on this type of Steeler mentality, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Russell Wilson's a very nice guy, but he wasn't always, he appeared as a nice guy, but then we heard about his office, diva mentality, Mr. Unlimited, has his own posse around him, never really integrated with the team, and I think that's why Sean Payton, from the get-go, did not like him, because he seemed, superior than everyone else, when I think a lot of these NFL locker rooms, if not every single one of them, the mentality is, we're all a team. We are the Pittsburgh Steelers, for instance.
Well, last week I talked about my bounce quarterbacks. I had Bryce Young having the biggest bounce. Justin Fields was number 2. He had to play at least 13 games last season to qualify for bounce consideration. And both those guys did. And Justin Fields had a quarterback rating of 46 last year. I'm saying he's going to bounce, and I think he'll get his chance playing at least 12 games this coming season.
Go. Time for the bounce. Justin Fields.
The bounce. He's going to get it.
He would need, like Ray Fittipaldo said, he's got to prove and show to the front office and the coaching staff that he's a part of the team's future.
Well, he'll get a chance in the preseason. We'll see how he plays. It'll be
they're
fun
on
to
one-year deals right now.
Watch the preseason. Yeah.
They're both on one-year deals. Justin Fields on the last year of his rookie deal. Obviously, they don't pick up the 5th-year option. Russell Wilson's on a 1-year vet minimum because the Broncos decided to pay him 5 years, I think over $200 million, something like that, some horrible contract.
Crazy.
Before he even played a snap for them.
Yeah, it hurt the Broncos organization.
That's called bad general management.
The Seattle Seahawks were the big winner in that one.
I would agree with that. Let's get into our next topic and our final topic of tonight's show. So, it's not been a great offseason for the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors reportedly, obviously, failed to land Paul George this offseason due to their reluctance to trade Jonathan Kuminga. That was a report by ESPN, and that report led many to believe that Kuminga had been assigned for the untouchable tag franchises place upon their cornerstones and young stars. However, Warriors head coach Steve Kerr said that that's not the case, actually. On Thursday, in an interview with 95.7 The Game, he basically said that everybody but Steph Curry is open to be traded, and this was the full quote. There's very few players in the league who are not talked about in trade discussions. Steph Curry is not being discussed in trade talks. Everybody else is. Everybody's got maybe 1 or 2 guys who are off the table. So the vast majority of players in the NBA, the players are constantly going to be discussed in trade talks because everybody's trying to do the same thing, which is improve. It's quite interesting that that was Steve Kerr's comment after what recently happened in free agency in the offseason, but I would like to know, how do you feel about the Warriors potentially putting their 4th-year forward on the trading block to be traded?
I don't think they should do it. I think they should hang on to him, give him a chance. This is the year that he could step up and really become a superstar. He averaged 16.8 points a game last year, 4.8 rebounds, 2.2 assists, 52.9% from the field. Needs to improve his three-point shooting. It was only 32.1%. But he did step up. The Warriors need a number 2 scorer to complement Steph Curry. Whether he can be that guy or not, maybe there's a little bit of a question mark there. Could they go out and get another scorer without having to give up Kuminga? I think that's what they should really try hard to do. They got their eyes on Lauri Markkanen from the Jazz, and I don't know whether they've got the pieces to make that happen. They did lose 2 All-Stars in Chris Paul, who didn't really fit that well with the Warriors, and Klay Thompson, who was there from his rookie season, was part of the Splash Brothers. Really maybe a bit of a surprise that he didn't get re-signed. He's headed off to Dallas. So I think it's going to be tough for the Warriors. I don't see – I mean, they have Draymond Green, who's getting old now. They lost Klay Thompson, so they don't have that big three anymore. They got a bunch of role players there, Wiggins, Moody, Looney. They're trade pieces, whether you could package the 3 of those guys and get somebody who's a decent NBA veteran, come in and play with Kuminga and Steph Curry. I don't think it takes you very deep into the playoffs. I think the Warriors are kind of on the downturn right now. They're on a rebuild.
Absolutely. No, and as has been talked about since Klay Thompson got traded, the idea of this Warriors dynasty, yeah, it's over. Absolutely, it's over. But what's funny is that Steve Kerr said, and I'll quote again, everybody else is, in the sense of, open to being traded. Well, if that's the case, then why didn't he voice his opinion when Paul George was available to be traded? Because the big portion of why Paul George wasn't going to the Warriors, after the Warriors offered multiple combinations of expiring contracts, young players, and an unprotected 2027 first-round pick, the Clippers said, hey, we'll take that. Just add Kuminga. And the Warriors like, whoa, we can't do that. Absolutely not. And shot it down. Well, if this is the case, I think Steve Kerr should have spoke up when that potential trade was going down. Because even Paul George admitted it was this close to happening. Paul George was almost in the gold and blue and playing alongside Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Kevon Looney. But instead, now the Warriors have to try to pry Lauri Markkanen, and reportedly the Jazz have been offered 3 first-round picks for him, which, I mean, what would you rather choose? A bunch of expiring contracts, 1 first-round pick, and a young player, or 3 first-round picks and Lord knows however many more, whether it's players or picks, to go get Markkanen. I think I'd rather prefer Paul George, personally, because he's a developed player. I think he's definitely, I think that might be a little bit of a hot take, but better than Markkanen. Paul George last season, 22.6 points a game, 5.2 rebounds, 3 assists on 47 from the floor, 41.3 from 3, which is a little bit better, at least from the three-point line, than Markkanen. Markkanen has like 1.6 points better and, better rebounding. But I think with the way the Warriors have it, you bring up Kevon Looney, he used to be that cornerstone at the center position. Rebound galore. He's now relegated to third on the depth chart for centers. Draymond Green is technically, based on ESPN's depth chart, the backup center. They got Jackson Davis as the starting center. So this idea that the Warriors are going to be a prominent team in the NBA, I can't see that being the case, because we've seen recently, even with Klay Thompson out there, Steph Curry can score 40 points. They lose by like 10. Just because no one else could keep up with Steph Curry scoring-wise, because Klay Thompson would shoot like 3 of 12. Draymond Green can't hit double digits consistently. Pods is Klay Thompson 2.0, a very young, and I think if he keeps going this way, timing is obviously off because Curry's basically at the end of his career, and Steve Kerr, I think, has 1 or 2 more years left of his contract along with Steph Curry. Pods could be the next Klay Thompson catch-and-shoot guy. But this team, and Andrew Wiggins, this team's not built to win. Andrew Wiggins is completely fallen apart because he was great in 2022 against the Celtics. We all remember. Wing defender, shutting down Brown or Tatum, scoring 17 a game, but big-time rebounds, big-time execution of the offense. It really disrupted the Celtics' planning. And obviously it helps when Steph Curry goes off, drops 40 points, and you can't do anything to stop him no matter what distance he's shooting the ball from. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Warriors look. But I do not think, and I agree with you, this is not a team that's going to go out, be a top 8 team in the NBA, or if you want to pass along the play-in game, a top 6 team in the NBA, and really try your best to compete for another title. Some people, for some reason, and you know what? Back in 2022, I thought there was a chance the Warriors could win. But now, there's too many pieces lost and not enough being added for them to succeed and be like, you know what? Against OKC, can they go up against Alex Caruso, Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein? Can they do that? Shea? Can they beat? No, they can't. Not anymore. Hell,
They missed out on the free agency. The big names are gone.
Paul George. They would not give up Jonathan Kuminga to go get Paul George. Could they go up against Dallas?
That might have been the right move, though. I mean,
maybe.
Paul George is up there, 34 years old, and Kuminga is a young rising star. He might have Paul George's numbers this year. We don't know. I mean, he did score 16 points a game.
He did?
Last year, he did okay.
16, 4.8, I'll round that to 5. 16, 5, and 2.
Yeah.
It's not a bad
Not
stat
bad.
line. He's a young player, a developing player. Like, how about this? For instance, let's go down the West. Let's go some of the top teams of the West. Can they go up against the Denver against Jokic and be like, can we stop Jokic, Jamal Murray? I don't think they can.
No.
Can they go up against Dallas with now Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Klay Thompson? You have, I'm forgetting the center name, Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively. Can you go against? No, I don't think. Too many big guys, too
PJ
fast.
Washington.
PJ Washington as well. I don't think so. Can you go up against the former number one defense in the NBA, the Minnesota Timberwolves, with Ant, with McDaniels, with Cat, with Gobert, and succeed? No, even though you do have Kyle Anderson, who was on the team last season. I don't think you can go out and beat them.
I don't either.
Can you beat OKC? Alex Caruso, Shea, Hartenstein, William? No, you can't beat them. I'm sorry. Too good defensively, and you have a defensive guard now that can focus on Curry, leaving up to Paz or Draymond or any one of these guys to go out and perform very well, which you can't do at a high level. Memphis with Ja. Here's the big issue with that one. I don't know if it's Dylan Brooks, but for some reason, the Warriors and Memphis have this rivalry going on. And it really was between Curry, Klay, Draymond, that trio versus Memphis. Well, Klay Thompson's gone. I think Memphis can now take advantage of that, and I think they're going to win a couple games against them. The Clippers without Paul George, that'll be a tough one.
Yeah.
The Lakers, Curry would need to drop 40 in order for them to consistently beat them. So you're going down the list here. There's not many opportunities. Phoenix generally gets the best of the Warriors as well.
I think they'll be lucky to be a playing team.
You know what? The Spurs. I think the Spurs are going to do a number on the Warriors this season. You got Chris Paul. You got Wemby. It's a place that people want to go because of the fact you have a 7-foot guy who could shoot threes and average like 4 blocks a game last season. I think it's like 3.5. I mean, Wemby blocked a shot when he was turned around. I mean,
he's a funny-looking guy.
Tall, long.
He looks like
Langley.
spaghetti.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of teams in the West, and we haven't even gone to the East. We haven't even we focused on the West there. Go to the East: Milwaukee, Indy, Boston, New York. The Knicks, not the Nets. Orlando has a good team. Cleveland has a good team. The Warriors are going to be a bottom team in the West. There are too many good and competitive teams that have too many star players or very good role players that the Warriors simply cannot match 1-to-1.
Yeah.
That's what the Golden State Warriors have become, and it's a sad ending.
Yeah.
But sometimes these big-time names and big-time teams generally don't end in gracefulness, where all 3 players or big 2 players go out together, and then the team just falls apart.
I understand why they're not willing to trade Steph Curry, but it's in a way it's a plus and it's a minus. I mean, it's a plus for the gate. Everyone remembers Curry and his heroics and winning championship games, but it's also a minus because they could trade him now and get a lot. They could trade for him now and get a lot, and they would get the ability to rebuild, and that's really what they need to do. I think they've shown the last 2 seasons that they ain't got it anymore, and Draymond is over the hill. And Curry is still playing at a elite level, but he's just him, and that ain't gonna cut it. So they have Kuminga. That's one guy as a young piece. They don't have the big guns up front. They haven't had the height, the muscle to really control the boards, and that ain't gonna happen again this year. So I really think it's a plus and a minus for them with Steph Curry. He's been a great player for them. He's the cornerstone of the franchise. He put the franchise really back on the map. And where he is now in his career, they should think hard about whether they want to hang on to him or really get a lot. They could get a lot for him still right now.
Well, I think Steph Curry, he ain't going anywhere. I saw some today that there is no shot Curry is going to be in any other uniform for his entire career. But you're absolutely right. That starting center, 6'9". Draymond Green, who played the 5 in a lot of the games over the past couple seasons, he's 6'6". They don't have size. And in today's NBA, not only do you need size, you need a guy who could shoot from the outside. Draymond Green can hit a couple nice threes, whatever. He still can't perform well offensively. Defensively, yeah. Can he be an offensive catalyst, setting Curry up for shots, setting up some plays for shots? Yes. But when it comes to actually putting numbers on the board, Draymond Green can't do that efficiently. Great player. I think he is because if you look at the numbers, not really like, oh my God, he averaged 20 points a game, 10 rebounds. No. You have to look. Eye test tells you he can run that offense. He is a key piece of getting Curry those shots. He is a key piece of setting up Klay Thompson for the catch and shoot. He is that type of a guy. He was that. He was the underrated, I'll call it, part of that big three of Steph, Klay, and Draymond. And now, unfortunately, Klay Thompson wanted to see greener pastures, and he's going to hopefully try to find that in Dallas. Will he? Dallas just made it to the NBA Finals. Klay's not the same player he was a couple years ago. We'll see what it looks like. But so far, Warriors, I think me and you could both agree, probably not a top 8 to 10 team in the NBA.
I think they'll be lucky to be in the play-in.
I completely agree with you. All right, that wraps up today's episode of the Harvey Hour. We thank you so much for the constant support. As always, we will catch you Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Night, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift